We live in a world where prices of everything are rising and electric bills are going up too. This is the story of Anne, who became particularly worried about it. Luckily, she was in the right time in the right place for help to be available to her. But as we see step by step how her situation improved, we can get some ideas of how each of us can lower our own electric bills. Here's what happened to Anne.
Anne called the Energy Trust of Oregon concerned about her power bills. Obviously we had a rate increase recently, and it's gotten to the point financially with her where it's become a major issue.
Anne, when we were talking a few minutes ago, you were sharing with me what got you to call Pacific Power because of your concern about the electricity in the house. Tell me a little bit more about what you were doing to conserve energy in the first place.
I do things like hang my clothes up to dry. I don't put them in the dryer. I don't use a lot of hot water when I can help it. Do all my laundry in cold unless I'm doing sheets and towels. Hang my clothes up. I don't use my dishwasher unless it is, completely filled. Rinse all my dishes off, put them in there. Cover my doors during the winter. Turn my heat down when I go to work, and then back up a little bit when I come home. I started to question my electricity usage when my bill was so high. When I looked at the price, that was before I started looking at the wattage, the kilowattage, and then when I started looking at that, thinking, how in the world could I be using that much?
You live in a 971 square foot home, 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of that, your equal pay through the power company was still $149 a month average
That's right.
throughout the year.
That's right.
And you were comparing that with other people's bills.
Right.
And what did you learn?
They're telling me between 60 and 70 a month. The highest one was 70 a month.
Anne has pulled a 2-year history of her power usage, and it shows the amount that she's paid and the kilowatt hour usage. And right now, as we're speaking, we're doing a comprehensive home energy assessment on your house. And so far what we're finding is there's not very much insulation.
Well, we're going to start with an external walk around, and I want to see the condition of the house in terms of the roof line and the windows. I want to look at drainage and make sure that there's no bulk water issues into her crawl space. Doesn't look like it. This all looks actually pretty clean, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's no overhang at the front here, so sometimes I look at windows and want to make sure they've got a proper drip cap or flashing or something on top. So sometimes that can be an issue. I always look for penetrations in the roof. It kind of already tells me what's inside before I get in there, so I can see a chimney on this side, a chimney in the middle, some vent pipes. So we're just looking at the foundation now, noticing that she has ventilation, but she's closed it off for the winter. She's done a nice, neat job too. Anytime I see some penetration in the wall or anywhere, like that big unsealed pipe hole, I make a note of it. She's got some pretty good windows, although we'll see a little bit more on the inside. She's got some exterior storms. Is that a dryer vent? Probably. So I just want to make sure we check these things out. And that would be a bit of an issue in my mind. It's dumping right into the foundation. And also you can just see where it goes straight down there, and it has a chance to start puddling up right there. Could it then seep into the crawl space? Sure, it could. So this would be better maybe pointed away, or even if you need to put some extension on it, get the water away from the foundation. So we do what's called a whole home assessment, and it's much more than just about energy efficiency. In fact, as home performance contractors using building science, we're most concerned about health and safety first, and then looking at the energy performance of the home. That's something that gets overlooked, unfortunately, but moisture problems in homes are probably 90% of remodeling repair cost in this country. And it's a $1 billion industry. So water is key. Absolutely, we check for moisture problems. What happened to her gutters back here?
There is no gutter.
Okay, well then there is a moisture problem, right? Mm-hmm. There's some more cracking in the foundation. Worth noting. Well, she's got some older single pane, double hung windows. It looks like a couple of them were painted shut. It looks like she's got a plastic covering on the inside, probably that's a leaky one, and she doesn't have a storm window, so she's probably tried to seal it a little bit from the inside. So really overall, just for a quick walk around, this seems like a home that's been well maintained and you know, has some minor issues. Here's an electric dryer. A quick look at the vent. It's all kinked up. This dryer's not going to be operating as well as it could. There's too much restriction in that vent, exhaust vent back here. And as far as this hot water heater, again, it's so old that we can't get a date off of it, but just from a safety standpoint, not the energy efficiency, it should be earthquake braced. And we hope that this is going down into the crawl space and then routed to the outside. So this is a temperature and pressure relief valve, so if there were ever an overflow, you don't want it spilling into the crawl space, you want it spilling outside the envelope. And we'll check that. We probably think that one condensate line that we saw is this now. But we can't tell until we're in the crawl space and trace it. Yep. You know, there's more pipe penetrations, of course, for the washer, and they seem like they're sealed up with paint and other stuff. She's cooking with this electric range, and I don't see any venting, but I would recommend an exhaust fan for the kitchen. And then I also see that on this wall back here, there's a wall heater. And that's an older kind of electric heating that's inefficient, and that's a big penetration in that wall too. Now, I didn't check under the sink, but again, there's obviously more pipe penetrations, and I can see them. They're somewhat sealed over the years. Somebody's done a little bit of trying to add some steel wool in some cases, which doesn't work to stop air flowing, or joint compound and then gobs of paint. So cracks like this will actually allow air seepage, so these are going to show some air leakage when we depressurize the house. Everything we see may not be an issue, but we want to make sure we're being aware of it. And here's much more on this side too. Okay, well, so we're stepping into the living room, and one question I would have is there's a rolled up towel in front of the front door, probably some air leakage happening. Let's just pull that back and see that fairly good gap underneath the floor, underneath the door, so maybe threshold or weather stripping is all that's needed there. We see we have a fireplace in here, a wood burning fireplace. One of the things we always want to do before we do a blower door test is to see that the flue is closed and that there's no loose ashes and certainly not a burning ember or something, because we're going to be pulling air in the house with the blower door. Built-in cabinets sometimes are adjacent to unconditioned spaces and could have leaks, and I see some cracks up in the corners, but it might not be bad. We won't know for sure until we test a little bit. So now we see another wall heater, and it's on right now. Feels pretty toasty right here. And I see some damage up here from water, moisture from the shower, and you can see that there's no exhaust fan here, so the moisture has no way to escape after bathing or showering. You should probably have an exhaust fan on a timer running for close to 1 hour. So you can see the older style double hung windows. See this window's locked, but see the movement?
Mm-hmm. Can hear it too.
So air is clearly going to be able to come in there. And then there's also the pulley holes, like over here with double hung windows where the weight's inside the casing there. It's just a big hole. So these kind of windows are some of the leakier ones. We've actually completed the walk-around inside, but we've not seen the unconditioned spaces. So we need to take a quick look in the attic and the crawl space just to make sure there's no obvious opening or connection to those spaces, because when we pressure or depressurize the home, we do not want to be pulling things in from those spaces. Well, we're just now getting to the attic access, and before I pulled the little hatch down, we had about a ½ inch gap here, so that's going to be a place for a lot of air to flow into the home. You can tell it's actually been pulling air through that space because of all this dark, what we call it ghosting. These are particles of dirt and dust and insulation stuff, and it started to discolor this. So it's pulling this air through this corner that was open. So, and also there's no insulation on top of this little hatch, even given that it's very small. This is a lot of conductive heat loss because there's no insulation on top of this little hatch. There is insulation here, but it's certainly been compressed and has settled over the years. There's 2x4 framing up here, and the insulation is probably about 3 inches on average. You're probably well below an R19 in this attic space, and today's code is R38. So one of the things I'm seeing is that a fair amount of this insulation has been installed backwards. And that is, this paper should be facing the warm side of the building. So it's actually installed upside down. So, and also if we peel something back a little bit, see, you can see this, what I was talking about earlier, the ghosting, all the black marks. And this was around this pipe. So there's been some air passing through this hole, carrying dust through the insulation. The insulation is acting like a filter in a way. So it would be very possible to do some air sealing to the few penetrations that we've noted so far, and then re-insulate, or insulate over this would be fine.
From here, we're going to crawl in there and look for moisture problems, anything like that. Right now we don't have any visqueen down on the ground, which is a moisture barrier, so we have opportunity for moisture comes from the ground up.
Structure-wise, the house is in great shape, but insulation-wise, we got a long way to go.
Absolutely no insulation.
Important we get the ceiling done before we put insulation in, because otherwise we have to tear it all back out to do the ceiling. So that's why the step of air sealing is important before we insulate the home. If you're seeing cobwebs in your home, that means you have air movement. That's something really to watch for. Something obvious. If you're in the corner of a room and you have cobwebs, or you're underneath the house and you have cobwebs, or up in the attic and you have cobwebs, and you know, because it's going to be a very concentrated area, you have air leakage there. That's a very simple way to troubleshoot where you might have air movement going in or out of your house. A 90-degree turn like that, what's going to happen is that air is going to hit the turn, and all your
Lint is going to catch it
lint
right
is
down.
going to catch right there. It's a good clean job. Not a lot of mess down here. Just we need to really air seal and insulate, and it'll make a big difference in this house.
Started off kind of slow. When you're at 50 pascals, it's the equivalent of a 20-mile-an-hour wind striking the building from all sides. And that's going to exaggerate the air leakage. That's what we're trying to do, is exaggerate it so we can find it. We'll use tracer smoke and an IR camera to help us locate some of these hidden leaks. There's a thermal image in the center. Or I could change my viewing screen to only see a thermal image. But it's nice to have the digital and the thermal. It's called picture-in-picture. So anything that's yellow, orange, that color, those represent higher temperatures, all the way up to the white up here on the scale. And anything that's more in the blue, purple, all the way down to black on this scale is a colder temperature. In that corner, where it's blue in the corner, see the big spot? That's indicating a much cooler temperature than the area around it. See the crack in the wall? Mm-hmm. And see where it's suddenly turning blue-purple? It's drawing cool air in because of that crack being connected inside the cavity of the wall, and therefore being connected to the attic where cold air is. That's outside air in the attic. It's drawing cold air in the house.
If you don't actively use your fireplace, a chimney is a way for heat to come out of your house, and a fireplace balloon is the best way to cut down on that heat loss.
Go over there with the smoke stick, put a little puff in front of that, you'll see the smoke move. You can just feel them with your hands. Put your hand there. That's so much more tangible because you can feel it.
Yeah,
Yes, we can see the smoke, but we can feel the cold air and feel it really strongly. If there's air inside the wall cavity, because the wall cavity is connected to the attic and is connected to the floor via other penetrations, then the air can pop out anywhere. People are always asking about penetrations and what do we mean. So here's a little escutcheon cover for this pipe. But if you simply raise it up, that's a floor penetration that can allow air to escape into the crawl space, or polluted air from the crawl space to come into our living and breathing area. So when we talk about penetrations, that's a classic example of a small pipe penetration that needs to be sealed. First of all, you can feel the air being drawn. And with the picture, the hot white is the heat of the water heater tank, but then that blue hole is cold air being drawn in from that hole to the crawl space. All those streaks of blue and purple are cold air being drawn in because that's so leaky.
This is the old fuse panel. She didn't have enough circuits in the panel to facilitate for the new heating system she's putting in, or for the other circuits we're putting into the bathroom and the kitchen. And this new breaker panel we put in, we labeled all of her circuits that were not labeled before. I'd have to say 70% of what's here is her heating, wall heaters that she had in the home. They're still there, but hopefully she won't have to use them. Today, I'll bring another line up out of the top of the panel, up into the soffit and in, so we can wire in her bathroom circuits and her new kitchen circuit.
When I plug in my little heater, within about 15 minutes, if you feel this up here,
It gets hot.
it's hot.
Yeah, for her GFI receptacle, when we put it in, we have to be within so far of the sink. This is the GFI receptacle. Now I'm wiring in the fan switch. Just save your life right now.
Thank you so much.
What I'm doing now is I'm just taping this off here where it's a little larger our hole. We'll tape it off, and then we're going to take some spray foam up above and fill this gap in and make a nice airtight seal around the can.
Next, Matthew Johnson of Seasons Change installed a new way to heat the home called ductless heating, which he explains.
The outdoor unit on the heat pump that sits outside takes heat that's in the air outside. It transfers that heat to the refrigerant, moves that heat to our indoor unit, and then we give off that heat into the home. With this system, we can extract heat that's in the air down to minus 13. We're still extracting heat that's in the air and putting that heat into this home. This system on high speed uses less power than this thing on low. With this one, we're just letting heat radiate. Well, heat's gonna go to a colder location. That's thermodynamics. Heat travels to cold. So this heat's just gonna radiate out and go seek out cold and gobble it up. This thing, we're actually throwing the heat out there. So with this, we're actually throwing the heat down here. We're getting it around into the kitchen. We're throwing the heat all over the place so that we get a better effect than just the radiant effect.
EcoSolar set up a meter connected to an indoor indicator that keeps constant track of Ann's electrical use.
Okay, we've got the Mitsubishi Hyperheat system operating at 100% capacity. It is 30 degrees outside, and our system is drawing 1.5 kilowatts, or 1,580 watts. But the Mitsubishi system has the inverter-driven compressor. What that will do is it will ramp itself anywhere from 30% to 100% of speed to accommodate for any load changes and for temperature changes in the house. So it may never all the way turn off, but it also is never going to all the way be on. And the lower speeds it runs at, the less energy it uses.
Then Jim Minix of the Oregon Human Development Corporation does another energy audit, including their own blower door test, in order to qualify Ann for the next step, which is insulation. He looks at the dryer, hot water heater, kitchen, front door, bathroom.
We're looking for mold and moisture issues in here.
Cabinets, where he finds a water stain, wall heaters.
The wall had to be cut open to put the thing in. There generally will have been a hole drilled in order to get the electrical supply there. And we would expect probably to pull some air from that.
Fireplace, attic, and crawl space. Then he sets up the blower door test.
So the higher the fan runs, the leakier the home would be.
He seals the fireplace and starts the fan. While the fan is going, he uses a probe to check the attic, the crawl space through the pipe penetration,
45.5 on that one.
and each room for drafts. He feels around the windows, especially where the counterweight ropes go through and create holes, wall heaters, and even under the bottom drawer of a built-in cabinet.
This is kind of an interesting little one that we find under here oftentimes. These are just the original subfloor floorboards, and we'll find that you're pulling air a lot of times in between them. Like right here, there's a pretty good draft. See a little cobweb kind of dancing there? We expect bathrooms to be pretty high just because of the number of plumbing penetrations in such a small space. And this one is. See, this one's reading up around 18. And anything above, like 8 or 9, we want to have a closer look.
He then turns the fan off, unseals the fireplace, and turns both the bathroom vent and dryer on to create a draft to be sure there is no undesirable backdraft.
Okay, so that's running, the other fan's running, and we'll go ahead and read our pressure with reference to outside and see how we're doing. So we're minus 3.3, 3.4, and based on that information, it doesn't seem to be a real serious chance of creating a backdraft condition in this home.
Next, he tests the water temperature with surprising results.
Yeah, you're about 168 degrees.
168.
Way high.
He then adjusts the two temperature gauges on the hot water tank down to 120 degrees.
The amount of air sealing that ultimately we'll do in the home has a lot to do with what the current infiltration levels on the home are relative to the minimum ventilation levels. So that's just how much air you want naturally to be coming and going out of a home for the humans inside to be, getting a fresh air supply adequately and to not create moisture and mold issues and some of those other things that can happen.
Remember what Ann's attic looked like before? Now look at the difference. It has been brought up to R38, and even the little hatch to the attic is insulated. And the bare crawl space now looks a lot different too. It has been brought up to R25.
As you can see, after they've come and done the insulation, they've put a 6 mil vapor barrier down on the ground to prevent any moisture problems seeping up from the ground. Also, as you look up to the insulation that's been mounted on the underside of the house, they've used lath to fasten that, to hold that up. Very important that the insulation fits snugly against the floor. No air gaps in between, otherwise the insulation is basically just hanging in midair and not providing any sort of insulative properties. You can see it's very flush throughout the whole house. Every area has been insulated, and before they installed the insulation, they went and air sealed all those holes that we were pointing at, like by the hot water heater and the outlet to the outside of the house. Very, very good job by OHDC.
But even before the insulation was installed, Ann noticed how much more comfortable her home felt with the new ductless heating system. As soon as she walked into her home, she could feel the warmth. And she noticed something else.
What I noticed is this month's bill in April compared to last year's April bill was that it had dropped from 2,200 kilowatt hours for the month down to 1,200 kilowatt hours for the month. And that was prior to the insulation being put in my attic and in the floor. So I expect my next bill to be even better.
There are ways for you too to make your home more comfortable. And you may also find ways to lower your cost.
There is something called Clean Energy Works coming up, hopefully next summer of 2011. In Klamath Falls is a pilot project. That pilot project will allow 20-year term financing on your home in order to make these changes. The hope is that those changes would about equal what you're saving each month on your energy bills. So you will be able to have better cooling in the summer, better heat and comfort in the winter for about the same cost you're paying right now, but you have this long-term advantage of being able to pay it off, and once it's paid off, the system is yours.
There are many state and federal rebates out there. The rebates do move around throughout things. There's hot water heater rebates, there's furnace rebates, air sealing rebates, insulation rebates. There's a lot of things going on out there right now to help people lower their energy use. It's a big goal throughout our country, is to get our energy use under control, and the rebates are there to help motivate people to do that. It's an important step for all of us to take, and it really affects your bottom line. I mean, as a homeowner, it's your money that you're spending, and the rebates are there to help you guys get it done. If you suspect you have any issues in your home, just contact your utility provider, be that gas or electric. Both those providers have programs to help you. Both those programs have tips and tricks on just home ownership and what you can do to help yourself. Obviously, this video is very good at pointing out what an average home does and looks like, and what we see is just minor leaks and easy corrections for a homeowner. The second thing you want to do is once these programs get together, we worked here with several different people in the community, several contractors to the home builders, several agencies here in town. Very rewarding experience for all of us, because at the beginning of this, we all did our stuff, but we didn't work together. And now at this part of the program, we pretty much have everybody on speed dial. We talk about jobs, we share information, we know what the other guy's doing and who to point him to. It's been probably one of the best experiences we've been through here in the basin with just connecting the dots and getting everybody on the same page.